Racist white woman humiliates a black man. On the plane, and then his true identity is revealed. The boarding process for Flight 236 was underway. Passengers shuffled down the aisle, lugging carry-ons and searching for their assigned seats. Among them was Marcus Carter, a tall, well-dressed black man in his mid-30s, carrying a leather briefcase. His calm demeanor and polite smile radiated confidence, but that didn't stop him from becoming a target. Seated in 12B, an older white woman named Mrs. Judith Hamilton was busy organizing her handbag and glaring at each passenger walking by. When Marcus approached, ticket in hand, and indicated that 12A was his seat, Judith's face immediately contorted with disdain. "Excuse me," she said sharply, clutching her pearls. "Are you sure you're in the right section? This is first class." Marcus, maintaining his composure, replied, "Yes, ma'am, I'm in the right place." "Seat 12. Judith huffed. "Well, I find that hard to believe. People like you usually sit in the back." Her voice dripped with condescension, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. A few glanced over, awkward and uncomfortable, but no one intervened. Marcus sighed inwardly but remained courteous. "Here's my ticket. If there's an issue, I'm happy to ask the flight attendant for assistance." Without even looking at his ticket, Judith snapped, "There's no need for that. Just sit somewhere else. I paid good money for peace and quiet, and I won't have it ruined." After Marcus took his seat beside Mrs. Judith Hamilton, it became evident that her earlier disdain was just the beginning. As Marcus quietly settled into his seat, Judith's behavior escalated from passive aggression to outright hostility. She muttered under her breath, loud enough for Marcus and nearby passengers to hear. Phrases like, "This is unacceptable," and "I can't believe they allowed just anyone up here," were laced with her contempt. The tension in the air was palpable, and a few passengers glanced nervously toward the pair. Some averted their eyes, unwilling to intervene, while others exchanged looks that seemed to say, "Is this happening?" Marcus, determined to remain calm, chose not to engage with her comments. Instead, he focused on a book he had brought along, flipping through the pages to ignore the hostility. However, Judith's behavior only intensified. She began shifting in her seat, crossing her arms and sighing dramatically, as though Marcus's mere presence was an affront to her comfort. At this point, a flight attendant noticed the commotion and approached them with a warm, professional smile. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her eyes darting between Marcus and Judith. Judith seized the opportunity to voice her complaints. "Everything is not all right," she snapped, loud enough to draw attention. "Understand why this man is sitting here. There must be some mistake. People like him don't belong in first class." The flight attendant's expression shifted, betraying a mix of shock and discomfort. She turned to Marcus, who remained composed and offered a faint smile. Then, addressing Judith, the attendant said firmly, "Ma'am, Mr. Carter's ticket is valid. He has every right to be here." Rather than backing down, Judith rolled her eyes and muttered, "Fine, but if he causes any trouble, I'll hold you responsible." Her tone was dripping with entitlement, as if she believed she had the authority to dictate who could and couldn't share her space. As the flight attendant walked away, several passengers silently stared at Judith, their disapproval evident. Yet no one spoke up directly. Judith, either oblivious to or uncaring of their reactions, continued to grumble under her breath. Meanwhile, Marcus opened his book again, his quiet dignity serving as a sharp contrast to Judith's escalating behavior. Throughout this exchange, Marcus displayed remarkable self-control. Despite Judith's attempts to humiliate him publicly, he refrained from retaliating or losing his composure. Instead, he allowed her actions to speak for themselves, exposing her prejudice and entitlement to those around them. This moment encapsulated the raw ugliness of discrimination, an unprovoked attack on someone's dignity based solely on prejudice. It highlighted Marcus's resilience and strength of character. The tension in the cabin was suddenly interrupted by a crackle from the intercom system. The pilot's voice filled the air, starting with standard flight welcomes before taking an unexpected turn. "Ladies and gentlemen," the pilot announced with warmth in his voice, "we're honored to have Mr. Marcus Carter with us today." As the name echoed through the cabin, heads began to turn, searching for the person in question. The pilot continued, his pride evident as he detailed Mr. Carter's accomplishments. Mr. Carter is a renowned philanthropist, entrepreneur, and founder of the Carter Foundation, which has provided scholarships and community programs to underprivileged youth worldwide. The revelation sent a ripple of excitement through the cabin as passengers broke into enthusiastic applause, their murmurs of admiration filling the air. Meanwhile, Judith Hamilton's transformation was dramatic and immediate. The color drained from her face, leaving her as pale as the clouds outside the window. Her previous confidence crumbled as she stared at Marcus, who remained engrossed in his book, seemingly unbothered by the attention. When she finally found her voice, it emerged as barely more than a trembling whisper. You're him?" Marcus looked up from his reading, and with the same polite demeanor he'd maintained throughout her earlier abuse, offered her a gentle smile. "Yes, ma'am, I am," he responded with quiet dignity, before adding modestly, "but I'm also just another passenger trying to enjoy this flight." The impact of this moment was palpable throughout the cabin as Judith struggled to form words, her attempt at an apology catching in her throat. Other passengers, who had witnessed her earlier behavior, now fixed her with disapproving looks. The contrast between her previous prejudice and Marcus's true identity serving as a powerful reminder of the dangers of assumptions and bias. When the plane landed, Judith avoided eye contact with Marcus as she hastily disembarked. However, Marcus's kindness remained unwavering. As they exited the terminal, he approached her. "Mrs. Hamilton," he said, offering a hand, "I hope you have a wonderful day." Judith hesitated, then shook his hand, tears welling up in her eyes. I, I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was wrong." Marcus nodded. "It's never too late to change, ma'am. Take care." As Marcus walked away, passengers who had witnessed the exchange felt a profound sense of respect for him. His grace and dignity had turned an ugly situation into a powerful lesson. True character isn't defined by one's wealth, status, or race, but by how one treats others, especially in the face of prejudice.